Welcome to Tech Brothers IT. Today we are going to learn a situation or scenario in which let's say your developer has special requirement and they want to run a store procedures from a table, and they want to have a capability to change the list of those store procedures or parameters of those store procedures, and they want to build a table in which they will list all those store procedures. And what you want to do, you want to create a SQL Server integration services packages that will loop through that table and execute all those store procedures what they have put in that table on daily basis. One good part of that is you do not have to change the SQL Server Agent Job or SSIS Package, but anything they will add or delete into that table, what you will do, you will always grab the information and then execute each of that. So in this video, what parts we will learn? We will be learning how to create store procedures with the different schemas in SQL Server database. Also, we will learn how to read the list of store procedures from a SQL Server table by using Execute SQL Task and save them into the objective variable. So objective variable is a data variable that can handle a table, a record set in the memory, and that we can use in SSIS package. So how to use or loop through the list of those store procedure what we have extracted in the objective variable in the Foreach Loop Container, and finally save values from Foreach Loop Container variables to the variables. So we will, whatever the values we will extract from the objective variable, we will save that into different variables in the Foreach loop. And the final we have here is execute store procedure by using execute SQL task in SSIS. So one thing I want to tell you, here we are creating this table with the database name, schema name, and SP name. So I was trying to make it more complicated where you have a store procedure across different databases that your users or developers want to put in this table, and you want to execute them. This can be done with multiple ways. This can be done maybe with the T-SQL cursors and all that. I have examples on that, how to use the go statement in T-SQL and cursors to handle and change database names and inside the store procedure or a cursor and run some queries. You can take a look into that video as well. Now here we are creating this table with list of these database schema and store procedure name. So let me go to the next part and show you the store procedure first. So in the test database, what we have, I'm creating a store procedure called load customer AS. So I'm loading customer Asia from North American table. So it is very simple store procedure. You will say create, then you have to provide keyword procedure, then you will say procedure name and as, and you say begin, and then here your queries will be multiple statements or one statement, whatever you have. So we will create this procedure in the test database. Next, we are creating a store procedure in the test database. So you see that this one was test only and this is test DB, so the names are different for both of the databases, and we are creating a store procedure in different schema called sales. So here we are creating a store procedure called sales.load AS. So let me take this one actually and change this one to call this one customer EU, because this is what we are doing here. So load customer EU. Alright, so we are creating this store procedure sales load customer EU. We are loading a customer EU from customer NA, but they are in the test DB. So let's create this store procedure. It's done. Next part, what we want to do, we want to take this information and put into our table. So here, just change it. So let's create this table. Now the table is created. Let's insert the values in this table. So the values are inserted. Let me show you how the table will look like. Now we have a database name, we have a schema name, and we have a store procedure name. So think about your users or developers. They can expand this one. They can provide the parameters here right next to the store procedure, whatever the values they want to use. And there could be multiple column. Maybe you have it parameter column here. So depending on your requirement, you can make it complicated. This information doesn't have to come always from a table. Maybe there is a file from which your users will provide a list of the store procedure that they want to run. So this can be coming from any source, but in our scenario it is coming from a table where we have a database name, schema name, and store procedure name, and we want to run these to load the data, or maybe this is truncating, doing some merge statements. So anything can be done when we run this store procedure. And tomorrow maybe we have another store procedure, or maybe they will delete one of the store procedure and it is not required to run anymore. So our SSIS package is going to get the latest information from this table and only run those store procedure which are in the table. So let me go back here and truncate these tables. So we see our script and SSIS package is working fine. So right now I do not have any record in these two tables, but if we run these two store procedure, they will put the information or records in these two tables. Now hit to SSDT or bids and create our SSIS package. So right click here in the project and say new SSIS package. Very first thing we need to do here, we need to extract all the records from the SP list table. So we need to extract database name, we need to extract schema name, and we need to extract the store procedure itself. So let me database name. So I want to choose these columns here and say schema name, and then we have table name, sorry, store procedure name, SP name. So we are gonna get these information. So we run this, it is returning us correct records. Now here we need to use execute SQL task, and we will be saving this information. So let's make a connection. So I selected OLEDB connection type. So there are multiple types you can use. You can use ADO, you can use ADO.NET and ODBC Excel. Let's say your data is coming from Excel, you can use that one. In my case, I can use OLEDB because I'm selecting the data from a SQL Server Table. So here the connections are there. So if I want to use the new one, I have the test connection. I'm going to delete this one and say okay, let me create the new one. So I'll show you how to create it. So right now I don't have a test database connection here. I can click new. Now here you can provide your SQL Server name or instance name, and then you have to provide the database name. So test. Now the connection is created. So we called it Amer PC /SQL 2014.test. So the first part is our server name, and the second part is our database name. So hit OK. Now here we are going to run this statement. So what we are running here, let me show you. We are selecting three columns. We are selecting database name, schema name, and SP name from SP list, and that table exists in the test database. Now here in the result set, as this query is going to return us multiple columns and multiple records, we have to select the result set type here. So we have none, single row, full result set, and XML. Here I will be selecting a full result set. Why? Because I have multiple columns and it is going to return me multiple rows as well. So I want to have that capability. If it will return me always one row, I can select single row, but I'm sure we will have the situations where it will return us more than one row. So I have to select a full result set. Now here in the result set, I will go and add a new result set variable where I can save that information. So in the result set, I'm not gonna touch this one, let the name as it is, and then here I want to show you a few things what we need to remember. And in the variable name, I can call it sp list underscore object. So why I'm saying obj is object type variable that can save a result set in the memory. So there are multiple records, and with the multiple columns or even one column and having multiple rows, we need the object type variable. This is ADO.NET type variable that will save the result set in the memory. So we have that. Hit OK. Now here I left the result name as it is. So hit OK. Let's run this one and see what happened. Now it failed, and it said that okay, the result binding name must be set to 0 for full result set and XML results. So that's one thing we need to see here. When it's a result name, but here it was by default new result name, so it should be something already set. But anyways, Microsoft or SSIS team, I don't know how they have planned this one, but here you have to provide a 0. Also here, if you will click here, it will be able to create a new result set. You will be able to it will be able to add a new result set here. So you can, it means you can return multiple results and save into multiple variables. Let's say if I will create another one, I'm going to call this one just variable 1, and this is object type as well. Even if I will provide multiple queries, what is going to happen? Now if I run this one, it is going to fail, because the result set, the invalid number of result binding returned from the result set. So we are thinking maybe there is a scenario we are only returning one result set. That could be scenario. So let's copy one and paste it here. So we are returning 2 results, and we have mapped to the 2 variables. Let's see what happened now. So it still failed. So that means what is the issue here? If you see, you can't really use multiple result sets here. So you remove it. Even the button is here doesn't mean you will be able to use 2 of them. Now go back to the and fix the query. So we are only returning 1 result set. We are all good. Now let's run it and see the results. Now it passed, it completed successfully. The results are saved in the memory, so we can't see it right now. So let's go back and find a way to see them. Now here we are going to use the Foreach Loop Container, and I'm going to use that. So I'm going to read the information from the object type variable. So here I will be using for each ADO enumerator. So once I use that one, this interface will change a little, and here in the ADO object source variable I will see my variables. So I'm using sp list object. So that's where we saved our result set. So we saved the database name, table name, and schema name. So let this one as it is. We don't have rows in tables, ADO.NET dataset only and all that. We don't have all tables. We have only one table. Rows in the first table. That's all we have. Now here in the variable mapping, as you know, we have 3 values. We are returning the database name, schema name, and store procedure name. We have to map that in the for each loop. So let's go back here, create a new variable, and we will be calling it db name. So that's the very first index. So that's 0. So if you see our query here, so we are returning select database name, schema name, and sp name from this one. So we will be mapping these values to the variables in the for each loop. So first, okay, that's mapped correctly. It is in the saved in the object, and the first thing we mapped it. Now for the second one, we will be saying schema name. It is string type. 1 is automatically selected, so that's fine. The next one will be sp name. that's fine. So see, its index start with 0, so even the very first value start with 0 and you keep going, and that's how it is. And now we are pretty set on this part. Hit OK. Next part is we are going to use these variables in the Execute SQL task. So there are multiple ways to use these variables and run those statements, build those statements. We can maybe create another variable and then save these values in that variable and call that variable in the Execute SQL task. But here I'm going to use you how to build the SQL statement in the Execute SQL task itself and run that one. So hit Execute SQL task. Now you can make a connection to anything. I'm going to make a connection to the test, but if you remember that we will be using the store procedures names, they are coming from different databases, so that doesn't really matter as long as you are on the same server. So now next part is if we go back here and in the expressions, we will go and hit expressions, and in the property we will be building our SQL statement. So we will be saying SQL statement source and then write the expressions. So here we are going to build our Execute SQL query. So we will be using exec. That's how we run our store procedures, and we know that we can pass the database name, dot schema name and dot sp name to run the store procedure. So here I'm going to use the database name, and then I have to add double quotes and then dot double quotes plus sign. Now I have to use the schema name, so I will be using schema name, and then I have to say plus sign double quotes dot double quotes plus sign, and then I will be using sp name. So if I evaluate this one right now, it is showing me only exec and dot dot because there are no values saved in the database name or schema name or sp name right now. So once it will run, it will get those values from the values will be saved in the object, they will be used in the for each loop, and then they will be saved in these variables, and we will have the values for Execute SQL task at runtime. So hit OK. Hit OK. Now let's hit OK, and we see that it looks good. Let's run this one. As of here, we have truncated the tables, so there are no records in these tables. If our store procedure will run, and they should have the records in these two tables, as those store procedure are loading the records in these two tables, but they are in different databases. So store procedure one is in test and the other one is in test DB. So let's try run the package. So it worked great. That's really awesome. But one thing I want to tell you, in the bids, I remember that at some point, if you will leave this one blank at very first part, it does fail. So I remember that in the old version, you can write anything at the point of if you get that red mark on that one, so you can write select one, select ABC. That will be overwritten with your expressions later, but sometime in the new one I didn't see that error, but in old SSIS 2005 and 2008, if you see the red mark on your Execute SQL task, just put select one or select ABC, and then it will go away, but the expression will be override that select one or whatever you write when you run your SSIS package. Now go back here and select the data from the table, and we can see that the records are loaded. That means our store procedure did run from multiple databases and they loaded these records. Let's truncate one more time, and as I was showing you, sorry, even whatever you write here, that will be overwritten. So if you will write here select 1 2 3 or whatever, that will be overwritten. We saved here. When we run the package, that will be overwritten, and it will take the values from the variables. Stop the package, go back here. See, this is what it is showing right now. So once the variable value will be here, they will be passed here, and that will be it. Now go back to the table, sorry, SSMS, run your select query, and you see that the tables are loaded successfully. If I will try to rerun it without, let's rerun one more time without truncating. So now the record should be double to make sure our SPs are running correctly from the SSIS package. So you can see that they did load again. So that's how you can loop through multiple store procedures which are saved in your maybe a table or a file, and you can use them. Let me go back real quick and show you. So here, as we are using Execute SQL Task to save in the object type variable, if you are extracting the records from the file, you will be using data flow here, and then you will be using flat file source or Excel source and extract those definitions such as the database name, schema name, and store procedures, and then you will be saving to the destination. That will be record set destination, and inside the record set destination you have to use the object type variable, and then in the next part will be exactly the same Foreach Loop Container. So I will have another video on that one. I will show you how to use that one as well, and I have a video on the record set destination as well. So hit the list and find out that video, watch it. It's good for learning point of view. Thanks very much for watching this video, and I will see you next.